Tough night for Arsenal as they crash out, and Man City crash out, of course, as well. But with Arsenal, I think if you look a little bit deeper, on the face of it, of course, it's one where it feels like it's fine margins. But if you look that little bit deeper, this was a toothless Arsenal side, which we're going to show you. And this, for me, was the moment for me where I was like, yeah, I think the things that we questioned when it came to Arsenal and comes to Arsenal are starting to rear their ugly head. And look, this is elite football. This is the highest level. So it's going to be fine margins. And I think there was something I was wondering about Arsenal. And in a game like this, with the opportunity that was there, it was one where you had two very, very well-coached teams. Two superbly well-coached teams. So it then comes down to little moments, individuals stepping up and taking the game to the opposition. We did a podcast yesterday with Neda Manua, Harry Brooks and Dan Edwards, two one-on-one coaches. You know, they work with people who are playing in these semi-finals, and they talk about individuality, and it's about surveying the situation and being brave in a different way, not just kind of, muscling in and doing those kind of things. And when it comes to Arsenal, I think the real reason is the reason that we've wondered about all season long. Do they have enough up top? Man City obviously went out on penalties in this one, but in terms of them staying in the tie against Real Madrid, the sort of, the compact, controlled nature of getting on the ball, keeping the ball, they did that. But in terms of breaking them down, it was actually moments of brilliance that kept Man City in the tie. Look at Foden's goal. Look at Bernardo Silva's goal in the first leg. Look at Gvardiol's goal in the first leg. Look at Kevin De Bruyne stepping up in key moments in that game. For Arsenal, in a game, as I say, of incredibly tight margins, which you can see right here, there were just some very clear moments for me. And the difference between the two sides were the amount of players that were willing to step up. And in particular, I think the problem for me was the front three of Arsenal. It was toothless. I felt like Odegaard was the only player, maybe Declan Rice a little bit, who wasn't unafraid, who wasn't being safe, who was really trying to impact and change the game. And all three of the front three had horrible moments, and Gabriel Jesus came on as well. And that lack of killer instinct is a problem that is still there. And I think it's one of those ones where when you're playing Sheffield United, you're playing Crystal Palace, you're playing sides that you're going to get more opportunities and you feel like you're better than them, your belief isn't tested. In this game, that killer instinct, that desire to go and win the game when it's as tight as it was, the difference is this moment for me. We'll come back to this because I was screaming. I was absolutely screaming, so I can't even imagine how Arsenal fans are feeling about this. We're going to run through the front three because Martinelli had an absolute stinker in this game, really. I mean, God, I don't want to go that far, actually. It's not about that. But it's in the moments when it matters, can you take your chances? Do you come alive and enjoy that moment, or do you play it that little bit safe? The first opportunity that Arsenal had, and overall, I think when you look at the average positions, actually, let's quickly go there because I think what that will show you is just how compact Arsenal were. And the way that they were looking to press in this game was kind of not in terms of individuals, is about a certain player at different times. Let me just wiggle this along so you can see it. Because you can see here, everyone in that kind of middle area of the pitch. And in terms of the pressing, it was whenever the ball went into a central area around that sort of that the final third line or the edge of it, let's say 25 yards out, that's when they were able to get onto them, or when the ball was in central areas. And in the first half, they had a few opportunities. I said in a preview for ESPN, the thing that was going to be interesting about this game is that I actually think both teams weirdly didn't overly want the ball. And both teams kind of wanted to be able to either press the opposition and win it, like Arsenal are generally very, very good at, or in terms of Bayern, they wanted to be able to play on the counter-attack. And both teams weren't really able to do what they wanted to. So it was a very, very tight game. And I've got to be honest, it was horrific in the first half. But let's get to these screenshots because this matters. These moments in the game matter. Odegaard, as I say, was one of the few players who was really kind of trying to create something and hurt the opposition. There was a real focus when it comes to, if you look at, you can see it on the average position for Bayern Munich, this focus of making sure you had enough bodies on this side. And they did that a lot of the time. But Odegaard gets the ball here. But if we move it along, the important person here, this is one of the few times where Martinelli got into a more central position. And I thought he could have done that more often. There was that focus down that right-hand side. Guerrero was the player who's trying to stop them. They were very asymmetrical, Bayern Munich, in terms of the way that they played. It was Sane getting down, but Guerrero was the player who was, he's not, he's a left back, but he was playing in left midfield. But in this moment, if we move it on one more, this is the difference. You had Odegaard, who I think can hold his head up. He creates that little bit of movement himself. Saka's making that run beyond, and Martinelli's in a good place. And I think this is one of my top lines for this, is the fact that Arteta's an amazing manager. And this is a really good team. But when you're in the Champions League and you're at this level, all the teams are good. So it then actually kind of reverts back to the individuals, is something that I was thinking. Let me know if you agree with that. But again, in these moments, Kai Havertz, he comes out. The ball actually ends up with Martinelli in this position here. The ball comes across to him. And that is, in terms of an optimal opportunity to score a goal in a game that's, you can tell after about 4 minutes is going to be really, really tight. That's got to go in the corner. That's got to make Neuer make saves, and he doesn't do that. It wasn't just Martinelli, though. This was something, again, if you look at the surface level of it, I don't think you get annoyed about this. They don't feel like chances. But there's a moment where Martinelli works down this side and then he's able to get a cross in. I think Kai Havertz, if that's Harry Kane, if that's Sergio Aguero, if that's an out-and-out elite striker, and again, we're talking about the Champions League quarterfinals here, okay? The best teams playing against the best teams, and you're trying to be the best team in Europe. The thing that is missing for Arsenal, again, it might feel cliche, but it's there for a reason. Havertz is not an out-and-out striker that's going to get you those moments when you're not playing that great and you need to get yourself sort of dragged out of it and turn a half chance into a full chance. And there's two examples for me when it comes to Havertz, who, again, I think has found his feet. I think he's been fine. But you're asking, this is the top 1% of the top 1% here. And for me, that moment there, he has to get there first. He has to read that. He has to know that Martinelli's getting to the byline and he's putting that cross in and he needs to get on it. Has to. Doesn't. This is just a few seconds later. This really annoyed me as well. Because, again, in terms of the first thought and the only thought being, I want to go and score goals, and having the confidence to go and do that, and also gathering information, having a look around, scanning, seeing when you can be through on goal and get your shot off to go and score and win the game because you want to affect the game. We move it on one more. That's 9 seconds later. So that's 55-30. This is 55-39. And it doesn't look like much, but there's a pass that comes in here to Kai Havertz. And you can see from his body language there, if we zoom in a little bit, hopefully, he's, you're only seeing the picture here. What happens is, zoom out, what you want him to do is to have seen what the situation was, get across that guy and get your shot off. He doesn't do that. He actually comes straight back and just passes. I think he passes it simply to, might be Odegaard, might be someone else. I appreciate he's a backboard for the team, but it's in tight games, you need a guy who's got that killer instinct. Kai Havertz hasn't got it. Martinelli is having a really, I think, overall a difficult season, and despite scoring the goals he did last year, in these big moments, at this big stage, away from home, obviously crowds against you, all those things. This is still a team in process here, right? And you wanted them to progress to be able to kind of get that new layer of experience to be those people that want to be ready to step up. I think Odegaard is that kind of player, and you could see him without the ball, pushing the team forward, with the ball, trying to make things happen, and he was the only creator on that pitch, in my opinion. The killer instinct is not there, and in terms of getting through the troughs of when you're not playing well, they need a striker this summer, desperately. And I know they've scored a lot of goals. This is the difference, right? Go and affect the game. Kimmich playing right back in this game. The way that the goal comes is the winning goal, of course. You have a cross. It goes from one side to the other side of the pitch. Kimmich at that point is about here, a bit further out. He's out of shot. But when the moment comes, he makes that driving run. He surveys the situation. He realises Martinelli is, he's not an out-and-out defender. And just generally, a run from there is very, very difficult to defend. And when that cross comes in, he is there to meet it, to affect the game, to win the game. And it is as fine a margin as that. These are the best players, right? I'm not doubting them as a group. But is it inexperience? Is it a lack of quality? Or is it just one missing piece? Throughout the season, there has been something where I've kind of gone, I feel like there is one missing piece here. And it kind of was in front of us all along. I still do think that is the case. We move on. This is the bit where I was losing it. And again, Arsenal fans, talk to me. Let me know how you're feeling. Do you agree with me? Because this is a beautiful cross. It's an outrageous cross, in fact, from Odegaard in this moment. And it goes here. And when a cross comes in like that, again, cleanse your mind and think, with a ball that's going in that area, doesn't want to do it, it's going the other way, with a ball that's going to bounce on the 6-yard line, if Harry Kane's in there, if Erling Haaland's there, I know he's struggling right now, if Ivan Toney is in this team, if Ollie Watkins is in this team, you get the point I'm making. The ball bounced there. That cannot happen. It can't. How on earth has an Arsenal player not touched the ball there? And again, look, they've been amazing at set pieces. But that, as I said in a previous video a couple of weeks ago, that is a fantastic plaster. And it could have been a plaster again for them to get them through it. And again, you can't win every single game with free-flowing football. It doesn't work like that. I think this is a phenomenal team. But the individuals, in terms of them stepping up, it wasn't there. And in the attacking positions, those are the guys who've got to be the most clinical. We've spoken about Martinelli. We've spoken about Havertz. We've spoken... Well, we need to speak about Gabriel Jesus. Because this is a huge moment in the game as well. Declan Rice goes and wins the ball. Kim Min-jae... It was weird. He's sort of in a shaky spot, clearly, as a player, because I do really like him. And I think what's important is, obviously, we know that ball's going to come from Declan Rice. But Gabriel Jesus, he wants it, he's saying. He's pointing, and if you watch it, he does have a look, and he scans, and he sees the situation. But he just does not have the killer instinct to understand if you're having a scan, is it, for good reason? Are you actually going to survey the situation and be that killer? And despite the endeavour that he no doubt has, the finish is woeful. The first touch shouldn't be there. You should have an understanding of Neuer. And if you are going to make your first touch there, you have to get it on target. The ball goes there. Like, honestly goes there. And this isn't me hammering them, but it is just the reason. So before anyone was to have a go at Arteta or have a go at the team, and let's talk about Saka. Saka was poor, really poor. He's a little bit out of sorts at the moment. He had, of the whole front three, there was one successful dribble between them all, and there were 4 dribbles attempted. 3 Saka missed. Martinelli did well with his one dribble, but didn't get on the ball enough, didn't affect the game enough. And that front line is those are the guys that have got to get you out of trouble. And so that is why Arsenal have gone out today, because it's a well-drilled team and it's one moment, really. I thought Bayern deserved it overall. I thought the plan from Arsenal to get at them in central areas worked in terms of Lema. Second half, Tuchel was very, very smart, was able to make that change, and Lema actually really grew into the game. But the real reason why Arsenal have gone out is that lack of a striker. It, for me, is as simple as that. Let me know if you agree.